The other area we're looking at is promoting patriotism and political participation. This is an election year. It is. And we have to vote. We have to be voting at the level of policy, which, for instance, one of the things that I am very keen on is which of the political parties is promoting a green economy.
Okay, so the church is in the world and the church is in the society. The church is in a country, in every country, I guess.
Pretty much.
And so what happens in the country is very important to the church, and how we live our lives in the society is of great importance both to the church and to the country. And in order to digest this issue or this phenomenon of Catholic social teachings, I have here with me Reverend Father Kpanie Addy, SJ. Father, thank you very much for your time and the opportunity to
My
have
pleasure, the second
with you.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Very kind of you to come.
Thank you. I met Father already in 2014 when I was in SHS. I was pretty small. I think I was very small.
I remember that, yeah.
And yeah, I'll put a picture up if I find it.
I'm sure we'll find it.
Aha. And so Father is an erudite academic. He has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to these matters. And I would leave him to give himself the introduction. So Father, can you please give us a bit of introduction about you and what you do?
Well, definitely, I'm happy to do that. I don't know about erudite academic. I certainly have an interest in Catholic social teaching, and largely because of the work I do. I'm the director of the Arrupe Jesuit Institute, which is a Catholic think tank, established by the Society of Jesus in 2018. I've been directing that since it started its inception, and it aims at bringing an interface between the church's teachings and society, as you mentioned in your introduction, that the church exists in society, in places, in countries, and there's a way in which the church must be relevant in terms of its teachings to those societies, especially as touch on one of the principles of Catholic social teaching, namely the common good, the quest for equity, for justice, for reconciliation, for harmony. So that's the work I've done since 2018, and that's what makes me perhaps in some ways suited for this conversation.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much, Father. So just to launch, to just go deep in, can you help us understand what Catholic social teachings is about?
Yes, I'd love to do that, but I actually, perhaps before I even go on to that, I wanted to state a couple of provisos at the beginning,
Okay.
Yes, and in a good way, you mentioned being an erudite academic. Any academic will always refer you to those sources that you can tap and even get more resources for in terms of understanding something. So I was thinking of some people that you could follow up on, apart from me, that could help us even digest some more. Some others thoughts that came to mind are Fathers Emmanuel Abekwe. I believe he's one of your lecturers there at St. Paul's Catholic Seminary. You can also think of Father Ebenezer Kese, Parish Priest of Christ the King.
Okay.
He's a moral theologian, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yes, you'd be most appropriate to speak with him as well in terms of, as you said, digest, to approfondir, to deepen your understanding of Catholic social teaching. The third person is a lay Catholic, and he's written this very interesting book. It's a little pamphlet, but he's written on Catholic social teaching, and he does that quite often in the Catholic Standard. That's Sir. He's a papal knight. Sir Fuswaba Minsabadahene.
I think I've seen that in the Catholic Standard.
Exactly.
Okay.
So those would be some other people that you would want to consider. But yeah, those are just the provisos, because that's Catholic social teaching is an interest. It's related to my work, but it's not entirely my academic field.
Okay.
So that's why I have all these books. When you see an academic with lots of books, you know that he's still trying to find everything.
Okay.
But yeah, But coming to your question, then the question was about the history.
The history and what's it about.
The history and what it's about. Many people trace Catholic social teaching to 1891. I don't know if it's quite accurate, but to 1891, to the papal encyclical, Rerum Novarum. I'm sure you are familiar with it. It was issued by Pope Leo the 13th. And it's about, new things. That's it had to do with the phase that the church was going through due to industrialization, or I'm not quite sure, but I remember there was something about society that was changing, and the necessity to address it, which had social consequences. And Pope Leo the 13th came up with this encyclical Rerum Novarum. So most people look at Rerum Novarum as the starting point for Catholic social teaching. I don't know if it's entirely accurate. As a body of work, as a body of doctrine that was developing, yes. But when I think of Catholic social teaching, and I as I said in our earlier conversation, I want to use you as a guinea pig for the talk I'll be giving later this next month. I like to think of Catholic social teaching and relate it to the scriptures. You're a theologian, and as you know, scripture is the soul of theology. So I'd like to go back to the scriptures and to 3 texts of scripture that capture essentially aspects of Catholic social teaching. The very first one is John 10:10. And I'm sure you're familiar with it. I have come that we may have life
and have it more abundantly.
Exactly. The words of Jesus Christ himself. And I think in there you have a sense of what Jesus represents for humanity, for society, that he has come. His very coming is to ensure the abundance of life. I'm a guy, and in Ga you say, wala. You'd live the fullness of life. And that's what Catholic social teaching is about. It's about the fullness of life being lived by everyone, not just a few, but everyone. Everyone is living in the plenitude of life that comes from Jesus Christ. As Christians, that's our belief. So Jesus comes and says that, and he doesn't only say it, he also demonstrates it. I believe it is Mark chapter 6 where he sees the crowd, that has been following him, and he feels compassion for them. And he says, give them something to eat. And he feeds them physically. He gives them food to eat, in abundance. That's Catholic social teaching. That's Christian social teaching, that people need to be fed. He gives them teachings. He helps them. He raises their awareness. He gives them hope. And then after that, he says, look, these people are hungry. They can't go out this way.
He feeds their brains and feeds their stomach.
Right on. Right on. And that's what we are called upon to do. That we're not just, as pie in the sky, abstract. No, but also to ensure the flourishing of life for people. So you'd see that the church is involved in so many different areas, healthcare, education, and provision. The church in Ghana is important for the provision of credit unions. It started with the Catholic Church. And all of that is about the plenitude of life. So that's, in a sense, Catholic social teaching. So that's one of the texts of scripture. The second one is Genesis chapter 1, verses 27 to 28, and then chapter 2, verse 15. 1, 27, 28 says, and let me see, I think it says something of God created man in his own image. In his image, he created them, male and female, he created them. It's about God entrusting to us creation. And so creation is also part of the focus of Catholic social teaching. It's not just a human being, but it's all of creation. And that's a deep, important part of our Catholic social teaching that has developed a lot in the recent pontificate of Pope Francis. This whole focus on care for the common home, the earth as our common home. And I like to think of stewardship not only in terms of God entrusting this to you, like a book or something, but stewardship in terms of the future generation. So we have the earth as entrusted to us by God, but also we're holding it in trust for the generations that will come. So we have to be conscious of how we treat this earth so that others may benefit from it. Exactly. Okay. So that's also another aspect of Catholic social teaching. The third one is Romans 8, 19 to 23, which speaks about how all creation is groaning and seeking, the redemption of the children of God, the sons of God, it says. And so we as human beings, as like the at the forefront of all creation. Jesus became man and elevated humanity by that. And with all of creation, we are seeking redemption. We're seeking God's fulfillment, this fulfillment, salvation that comes to us through Christ Jesus. And we human beings become, in a sense, call it this way, priests of creation.
Okay.
You know, like you know, at the Holy Mass, you say, through him, with him. It's a prayer. You are elevating everything to God. And so we are priests for and of creation and interceding for creation and trying to bring creation to its fullness. Definitely not realized here on earth eventually, because there is the here and then there's the hereafter.
Yeah.
But we are interceding, we are pleading, and we are working for the benefit of creation. So it's the human being in totality, but also creation in its larger, experience. So that, for me, is a more biblical basis for Catholic social teaching.
Okay.
That it is a body of work, a body of doctrine, we would not dispute that. And that goes back to Rerum Novarum. Anybody who does a course in Catholic social teaching will tell you that you have, what they call the classical texts.
Okay.
Like Rerum. I'm sure you're familiar with some.
Yes.
Let me give you a little quiz. Can you name 3 of them?
Okay, I think it all began with Ubi Premium. There is Rerum Novarum, and there is Quadragesimo Anno.
Correct. Yes, Quadragesimo Anno and Centesimus Annus. There's, in different pontificates, even Mater Magistra with John the 23rd, Pacem in Terris with John the 23rd, about peace in the world. So there have been different pontificates which have developed the doctrine. And as you just mentioned, Quadragesimo Anno I think it is the 80th year.
40th year.
Quadragesimo.
After Rerum Novarum.
Correct. So, you have Rerum Novarum as the pioneering text. And after a period of time, in the best of our tradition as Catholics, the Pope will say, as my venerable predecessor has written him, and then, so we have that Quadragesimo Anno, you have Centesimus Annus, which is 100 years after Rerum Novarum. So I think that was 1991 that Pope St. John Paul II issued that encyclical. In the time of Francis, we have had, I think, one of the real pioneering works, or one of cutting edge, I'll put it, is Laudato Si. Laudato Si, which looks at an integral ecology. So all of these are texts of the Catholic Social Doctrine. I am looking at this and I want to share it with you, that Catholic Social Doctrine or Catholic Social Teaching, CST, is the Church's doctrine. It is teaching of the Church. It is developed. It is, and like most of Catholic Catholic teaching, it draws a lot of its resources from the natural law of St. Thomas Aquinas. It is rational. It is something, it's something well thought of, and lots of theologians and scientists, for instance, Laudato Si, they were involved with a number of scientists. So you have real body of work, thought out, intellectual, very robust. So it's doctrine. It's also, and we had this conversation earlier, I wouldn't say that it is a political system, qua system, or economic system, qua system. So you have Marxism, you have, Leninism, you have capitalism, communism, neoliberalism. All of these are political systems, all of them economic systems. Catholic social teaching is not a system qua system that says, okay, use these, But what Catholic social teaching is principles, guiding principles. They kind of are there to shape how we are enacting, how we are operating various systems. And if these systems are going contrary to Catholic social teaching, it says no, that we are in the wrong. Okay.
So more like if you are living in a capitalist state, Catholic social teaching helps you to live the capitalist life in a way that is more Catholic, or
probably. There are others who might even say that capitalism runs contrary to Catholic social teaching because of the focus on profit. you know.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
you know, because capitalism is about capital. That's capital, I believe, Karl Marx. It's about, you know, profit. You're looking for profit, and sometimes profit at the expense
of
the human person. So if that is what capitalism is, then Catholic social teaching will say that, sorry, capitalism does not work. Interesting, isn't it? So it's principles, you know, principles, and there are a number of them. I'll go through a few of them with you. It's also criteria for judgment, you know, criteria for judgment. So it's a kind of discernment. And I think that's where the strength of, forgive my saying, the Jesuit Pope is important. The criteria for judgment. And you have different, sometimes axioms that may guide the way. So, for instance, the common good is just two words.
Yes,
it's a criteria for judgment. When we are, and in the Jesuits, forgive my.
No worries.
There's a very simple principle, axiom that works. It says the more universal the good, the more it is divine. The more universal the good, the more it is divine. So that once this good is being experienced universally at a greater level, then you see the fulfillment of God's plan. So if, for instance, this good is a very parochial good, or the good is being served parochially, whereas it can be served extensively, then let's look at the extensive operation of it, which reflects God's plan. You know, so that's an axiom of Catholic, yeah. And then it's also guidelines for action, you know, how we can act in ways that are proper. So I've said a lot. I don't know if I'm giving you the history as you wanted.
Yeah, I'll give you so much already.
Thank you.
Now, I would like to move on to, this is more practical. The functionality of Catholic social teachings. Does it work? Does it work? Is it working in other parts of the world? And because we're in Ghana, we're zoning on Ghana, does it work in Ghana? Do you see it working? You know, does it operate?
Yeah, I think it operates at different levels. Maybe I should have said a few things on the principles. Like, I'm just looking and checking, and you know, these books will tell you sometimes they have different principles that they refer to. But one of the key principles is, for instance, human dignity. You know, another key principle is the common good. You know, and the common good is very well defined in the Catechism of the Catholic Church. I wish I could find it. Actually, this book is very helpful by Fusfoba Banahine, because I can see already Paragissimo Anno referred to, you know, the 40th year, different. But coming back to principles, so human dignity, common good, subsidiarity, participation. Let me see. There's another one, very important, preferential option for the poor. Are there others you can remember? Solidarity.
There's solidarity, subsidiarity, preferential option for the poor, common good, dignity of the human person.
Correct.
A number of
them. I think the gauge or the metric of its working is tied to these principles. So let me give you a very interesting one from the history of our country. In the 80s, our country went through quite a turbulent period of time. It was the revolutionary years. And there you could see the functioning of Catholic social teaching, when the Catholic Standard would constantly, on the front page, put the names of those who had been detained without, you know, judicial process, and say, where are these people? Because something was being affected. Their human dignity, their ability to live their lives fully was being affected. And so there you'd see the functioning of Catholic social teaching. The fact that the Catholic newspaper was taking the issue of people's liberties to the forefront of its coverage. And you see it still, you know, so that's, you know, this is a church doing what it does best. I mentioned to you in our conversation earlier about the work of Father Peter Henriot. Henriot was also he also started the social center. He's still alive.
Oh, Nice.
He's still alive. He's down in the United States. Pete Henry. I don't know if I show it to the so that's Pete Henry. And Michael Schultheis is the one who started the Catholic University of Ghana. Both of them Jesuits, by the way. Anyway, coming back to issue, I think the others might be. I think James Halderson. Anyway, coming back to issue. Father Pete Henry was there in Zambia and helped set up the Jesuit Center for Theological Reflection, JCTR. And what was one of the strengths, and remains a strength of JCTR, is what they call the basic needs basket. That each month or each quarter, this center, like the Arrupe Jesuit Institute that we are starting here in Accra in Ghana, would go to the streets of Lusaka and maybe Kitwe, other places, the Copper Belt in Zambia, and will identify what was or what are the basic needs of an ordinary family in Zambia. Whether it is cornmeal for nchima, which is a meal they prepare, or tomatoes or onions, and determine the price, the price on the market, and compare that with perhaps the minimum wage that the government had stipulated. And on the basis of that, we'll be able to say that, look, this, what you're providing as government, or what doesn't tie in with the real,
the people cannot afford with their wages.
With a minimum wage. So we have to look at it again. So issues of economy, and that, why would a Catholic center do that? Because Catholic social teaching says preferential option for the poor.
So it is more like the Catholic institution challenging the government for the benefits of the poor.
You're doing this even better than me. I think it's perfectly quote. That's exactly what it is. And so does it work? Yes, I think it does. It does when there are institutions in place that can take it forward. In a sense, that's one of the things the Arrupe Jesuit Institute attempts to do. We've done a number of things. I know we've done some series programs on. Last year, for instance, we did Christians as citizens, not spectators.
Yes, I saw a number of the programs, I think seminars, talks.
Yes, talks. We looked at corruption, we've looked at the media landscape. And it's really, and even I think the very first program on with the Catholic Professional Guilds was on the financial sector, Christian ethics in the financial sector, because we had just gone through the banking collapse, remember, people had been laid off, etc. So what is the right thing to do in such a situation? It's about solidarity, about caring for the least privileged, people who are suffering, because that's all part of Catholic social teaching. And if you remember, this takes us all the way back, not so much to Rerum Novarum, but to Jesus saying, they must have something to eat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it works. I'll say it works. Now, I wouldn't say it works. Perhaps you wouldn't say that you're going to fashion a whole economic system on it. I'm not so sure. That may not be its ambition or its aspiration, but that it is principles guiding, shaping policymakers and saying that, look, let's be mindful of this, let's be mindful of that, let's be mindful of this as we shape policy, so that we are doing things that enhance people's welfare, bringing the plenitude of life for ourselves as human beings and for creation.
Okay, thank you very much, Father. If you're still watching, we are here talking about Catholic social teachings. Simply put, the Catholic Church in the society, the Catholic Church in the states, the Catholic Church in the country. And if you're watching and you are enjoying what is going on, you're getting so much, leave a like and contribute in the comment section. Okay, Father, the next thing I want to ask is, how can we make this more publicized? Because on this book here, it says our best kept secrets.
Yeah.
In recent times, especially in the pontificate of Pope Francis, this seems to be under the spotlight. It seems to be getting so much attention.
Yeah.
How do you think we can make this even more? Are there ways of making this more popularized?
Yeah, I think so. I think you've started. You are in the process. And I'd like to urge you and your colleagues in the seminary on 100, 200%. I mentioned this, that it's what you're doing is great. You see, you have a demographic that you speak to. You are a young person, and young people are on YouTube, they're on Instagram, and they need to know this best kept secret. So what you're doing is a start,
Thank you. Thank you.
If I give you the likes.
Thank you.
So you are really on course, and I encourage you and your colleagues that are working on this. Perhaps staying with you as seminarian and the church, I would say my brother priests and religious, have a role to play, especially to help lay persons come to a deep understanding of Catholic social teaching. That's a bit of what we do at the Arrupe Jesuit Institute. So whilst I commend you, I'd like to also do a bit of what do they call it, incensing ourselves.
Okay.
Incensing myself. And here I'd like to share with you, you have here the Arrupe Jesuit Institute's Maiden Social Justice Calendar, and I'll give, this is a copy for you.
Oh, thank you very much.
So you can see our focus for the year 2024, growing Ghana's green generation. And if you see that, immediately you think Laudato Si.
It's so Laudato Si.
It's so Laudato Si. And one of the things we've been doing, we did last year and we'll continue doing, is going to schools, junior schools. We went to Adabraka, St. Joseph's junior schools, etc. And urging them, not only educating them, but also going with seedlings for them to plant.
Okay.
So that it must be active. It must not just be abstract, but it must be active. The other area we're looking at is promoting patriotism and political participation. This is an election year. It is. And we have to vote. We have to be voting at the level of policy, which, for instance, one of the things that I am very keen on is which of the political parties is promoting a green economy. Which of the political parties is saying, look, Ghana must become more and more green. We must think about issues that are commonplace in other African countries. If you go to Rwanda, polythene, plastics are not, first single-use plastics are not allowed.
Wow.
Yes. If you go to buy Kelewele, they'll not put it in a plastic black polythene bag. They'll put it in a paper bag because that can easily, recycled and disposed of better. Now, these are things we should be talking about. Okay. And I'm happy that I have this medium to do so. Okay. So I think we need to do that more and more through means like this. I wrote here activism. The Catholic Church has a strong tradition of activism, and I'll even say youth activism. The research I'm doing as part of some studies I'm undertaking has exposed me to a group whose principles I think we need to revive, especially with young people. It's known as the YCS. Yes, Young Christian Students. Exactly. 3 principles: see, judge, act. See, judge with the light of Catholic social teaching, human dignity, preferential options for the poor, subsidiarity, solidarity. So as you see a situation, what's going on, you judge it in the light of these principles of Catholic social teaching, and you act. You act in a way that is transformative. So it's not difficult. These institutions or these processes or structures are already existing. We only need to revive them. And I mean, if, for instance, the Archdiocese of Accra is ordaining 16 this year, and 16 can go to different places, multiply effect, if they are convinced, together with those already in ministry, and lay people about these things of principles of Catholic social teaching, and to imbibe or to share that with others, then we will be doing very well, and the best kept secret will be unveiled.
Unveiled.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much. Now, this will be a kind of like we're getting towards the end.
My goodness, that's so sad. I was actually revving like
No,
we
can keep going.
No. Whatever works for you.
Okay, so definitely, this venture will face challenges.
Correct.
And what are some of the challenges it faces, and how can these challenges be surmounted? Generally, and then particularly in Ghana.
Yes, the challenges that confront Catholic social teaching. I can think of your question, practicality. That in some places, perhaps not so much in Ghana because it's not well known, people will ask or will pose the question of how practical is Catholic social teaching. You can't really build an economic system on it. So you people are making a lot of noise. And when put your money where your mouth is. When the push comes to shove, you can't deliver. But as I said, I don't think that is the aspiration of Catholic social teaching. On the contrary, I think it's like a background, that shapes understanding. So that's one of them, that that people may think that this is not practical. It's not. It can be done. It's not
doable.
It's not doable. The other one perhaps is a bit more insidious, and perhaps that's even more related here in our context. Common good. I am a minister. This is a joke, by the way, and it perhaps illustrates the point. There's a joke about a minister, from an African country and a minister from Southeast Asia. They both went somewhere, and I think the minister from Africa went to visit his friend in Southeast Asia.
Okay.
And as they were driving, he showed him, the Southeast Asian minister showed the African minister a hospital. He said, pay attention to that hospital. Pay attention to that hospital. Okay. And then they drove home, and it was a palatial place, beautiful place, which was the home of the Southeast Asian minister. And said, you see that hospital? The contract came 40% that hospital, 60% this house.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Oh boy.
Now, fast forward, there was another conference in now this African minister's, country. And as they were driving from the airport, he shows him a plot of land, just vast land. He says, pay attention to that. Then they get to the house, palatial. He said, oh my, he says, you see that land? 0%, 100% here. It's funny, it's funny. But the truth of the matter is that is not the common good. In both instances, a hospital that must serve the needs of people. If people don't have access to that hospital because it was never built and the contract was given, I say it today, it's actually a mortal sin. It's not. Mortal sin is not just, whatever people may think, sins against the sixth commandment, as we in our Catholic Church we like to, No, but that is a mortal sin. People did not have access to a hospital because you didn't build it. I don't want to say you're going to hell, but you get my point.
Yes.
And that's a common good. So now, is the common good being frustrated in our country or in our countries? Are people mindful of such principles? And in a sense, even militating against them. They are aware, because the man definitely knows that hospital should be built. But for whatever reason, greed, we'll say in cheat, selfishness. I alone want to benefit. Because of that, I will frustrate, I will go against that principle. And that's why I said it's even more insidious. Okay. Preferential option for the poor. So you and I can do these programs, can preach till heaven comes down, and a person may be hardened of heart to, abiding by these principles. Not that they don't know, but and even want to frustrate it, and that can be a huge challenge to the realization of Catholic social teachings. I hope that illustrates the point.
Oh yes, it does.
Very clear.
It does clearly. For us youth, we in recent times we seem to be more concerned with what we say japa, to leave. And it is a recent trend. I mean, from last year, getting to the end of the year, people were just leaving. It was so full. People were just japaing, leaving the system. What from your expertise, from your experience, and from what you know, how can Catholic social teaching help to mitigate this situation where people want to leave? And the truth is, I'm of the opinion, right now, just don't worry about what happens in the country. Just work hard, do your best, get your money, and leave. What can be done from the Catholic social teaching's point of view?
That's a very good question. And you see, you have approached it from one angle. The other angle is even from the angle of migration. So the one who's leaving, and how about the one who's receiving? And that's where Pope Francis has been so right from the beginnings, going to Lampedusa. He's been so critical about how Europe is offering a place of hospitality to migrants who are leaving because of the conditions in their countries. And sometimes these conditions have been brought about by European and Western nations. Libya. What happened when they went and invaded Libya? And Jordan and all of these, these Syria,
Yes.
Ukraine, who are behind the armament in South Sudan, So your point is very well made. And so the Pope's interest in migration and setting up a whole dicastery, it was a sub-dicastery. Yes, headed by Father Czerny, now Cardinal Czerny. The dicastery now for integral human development.
Integral human development.
That's right. So that whole focus on migration is related to this. What can be done? I cannot help but return to the point I made about, common good, human dignity. I put my hand in my I may not have the answers. I don't think that in an interview like this I have. Otherwise, I think I've solved the problem. Definitely, we want to make our societies work better. There must be political participation that ensures that life gets better for people. Because if people have a good, environment in which to flourish, they will not chapa. They will not. But all too often, those who are in leadership, political leadership, cultural leadership, sometimes even religious leadership, are not sensitive enough to be like Jesus, who says, give them something. So I'm returning to that text of scripture. Give them something to eat. I have come that they may have life and have it in abundance. And it mustn't only be at the top level, but even at lower levels. So for instance, in our country, there are, different levels of governance. There's lower rural or lower level governance, so MCs, DCs, things like that. I don't know enough about our governance system to speak to the issues, but definitely if we do our best and ensure that this society is doing better, few people would see the need to jump. There are larger issues. I just mentioned Libya, I mentioned Syria and Ukraine. I've seen videos where you have a U.S. Secretary of State saying that the war is benefiting American economy. Now, how? Your question exactly. How? And so these are larger issues. And unless there is a conversion, I return as a Catholic priest to that, fundamental point. In Mark's gospel, the kingdom is at hand. Repent and believe. Unless there's a conversion, a metanoia in the human spirit, in the human heart, some of these situations will remain with us. But we can't also, give up. We are people of hope. And hope springs eternal.
Okay. Thank you very much, Father. I'm so grateful. Personally, I have been edified.
Well,
oh yes,
I'm glad.
And then I enjoyed this encounter with you. It's very good, right? Anthony enjoyed it too. We all did. I mean, I saw him gesticulating at the back there. Aha.
Many likes.
And so, if you were to this point, I've done a great job.
I should think so.
You've done a great job. Like and share it. Comment, most especially comment, because this is something that concerns all of us. Share it for everyone to know about it. And Father, any last words?
Any last words? I don't know whether to say last words on Catholic social teaching or last words, I think I'd like to say, keep it up.
Thank you.
That'll be my last word. I mean that, I think the future of the church in Accra, the future of the church in Ghana, the future of the church in Africa relies on passionate young men like you, young men and women like you, who believe what they're doing and doing it the best they can in small ways, But, how many fish and how many loaves was it?
Well, 5 loaves and 2 fish.
In the hands of the Lord, it is more than enough. So keep it up.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You heard that? Keep it up. Keep liking and sharing. Thank you very much, Reverend Father Kpanie Addy, SJ. I'm so grateful for the opportunity. So we hope to see you in our next video. Peace.